So good morning again. Welcome to the second Women in Local Leadership series for 2022. Very excited to have with us today Michelle Markowitz, President and CEO of Cardinal Cushing Centers, and Jackie Collins from Partnering for Performance. She's the principal there. And Jackie will be moderating our session this morning. I want to take a quick minute just to say thank you to our sponsors, Enbridge, George Washington Toma, Hollywood Agency, Mass General Brigham, Mountain One Bank, Partnering for Performance, and Steinberg HR. Thank you again for your support of this program. Without your support, we don't get to do these types of programming, so we really do appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and kick off the program now. I'm going to turn it over to Jackie. Jackie is a wealth of knowledge. She's a past chair of our board. She's long been involved with us and has been, helping businesses in our region and beyond for 20 plus years. Before that, she was in financial services. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Jackie to kick us off and tell us a little bit about Partnering for Performance, and then get us going with our conversation with Michelle Markowitz. So Jackie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So good morning, everybody. It's great to see all of you. I actually know most of you, and some of you I know and haven't seen your faces for a long time. So this is great. So I am Partnering for Performance, and I'm actually a leadership coach and advisor. And I work with leadership teams in companies, executives, as well as independent professionals. And my purpose is to help leaders optimize their leadership. So on that note, I am going to introduce Michelle again. I had the privilege of having lunch with Michelle a couple months ago, learned a lot about her background, and she has a very interesting journey. So one of the things I'd like to tell everybody, we're going to do something a little bit different this morning. And I'm going to ask you all to, as Michelle is speaking, if you have a question at that moment that's relevant and in context of the topic, please raise your hand and we'll take the question at that moment instead of waiting at the end. And in case I don't see you, Courtney will see you. She'll be watching. So anyway, on that note, Michelle, welcome.
Thank you.
So happy to see you. So your journey at Cardinal Cushing is a very interesting one. Going from basically behind the scenes and then transitioning into the president and CEO of the organization. So can you tell us something about, your background with Cardinal Cushing and how the transition into being the face of the organization, how that makes you the leader? How, what are the characteristics and traits of that?
Sure. Yes, thank you. And I just want to say it's great to be here with all of you this morning. Truly an honor to be part of this series and to participate in this conversation. I've been at Cardinal Cushing for going on 24 years. And so my story is unique, but, in our breakout session, Erin reminded me, she's the development director at RTR, that is the story of many of folks in human services, because when you fall in love with what you do, you never want to leave. I started at Cardinal Cushing Centers in high school as a volunteer. I went to Archbishop Williams, and St. Coletta Day School is right next door. I had the opportunity to become a volunteer during that time, and just totally fell in love with the work, with the mission, with the values. From there, I have worked several roles within the organization. I've worked in the residences, I've done overnight shifts, I've worked in classrooms, I've been a long-term substitute. So I think as a leader, it's important that I can really understand the journey of our employees and what challenges they might face on any given day. I think that stepping into these various roles as my career grew, I think that going from a peer to a supervisor in some respects definitely has its challenges, but I think what's important as a leader is to always be your authentic self. If you are truly your authentic self and you lead with I believe, empathy, humility, and respect, you'll always be successful. You know, I sort of launched here at Cushing when I took over as the director of admissions, and really did a lot of work to change Cardinal Cushing's footprint and to take it on a national and international level. Within 2 years, we were licensed in 7 states as far as California. And then I wasn't satisfied with that and wanted to go international. We became approved for international students, and we had students and a wait list developed from Bermuda, Mexico City, and Saudi Arabia. So from there, my role sort of evolved and I took on more duties and became the chief operating officer in 2019, and then became the CEO in 2020. My path wasn't always clear. At one point in my career, it's kind of interesting, I had considered going into criminal justice, and really, you know, the work that we do here at Cushing, you know, our values are compassion, respect, social justice. Those are quite transferable. And I came from a family of police officers. My dad was a magistrate, and I graduated from the Mass Municipal Training Academy, and knew in my gut that wasn't what I wanted. So really stuck with it at Cushing and followed my passion and my heart. But I think for me now, becoming the CEO is something that I'm most proud of, and it's been an incredibly humbling journey for me, and one that I take very seriously.
So if I can go back to something that I'm really intrigued about, and I didn't know the international aspect of Cardinal Cushing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what did you have to do to become a designated international place, and what does that look like?
Sure. So, you know, when I decided that I really wanted to expand the footprint of Cushing to a more national level, I was meeting professionals along my way, psychologists, educational consultants, attorneys, and I kept hearing about the need for services for individuals with disabilities outside of the United States, lack of service, but really even worse is just the lack of value of seeing people with a disability as a contributing member of their community. And so it started small. I really focused my efforts on Bermuda, and that was close to Massachusetts. And many of the families in Bermuda, their child, their loved one was not getting the services they needed. The government, I worked very closely with the Director of Child and Family Services. I had the opportunity to meet with him personally and shared what Cushing did, and he was thrilled. You know, Bermuda, their primary focus is tourism. You know, we were looking at having students come to Cushing, teaching them culinary arts, teaching them hospitality skills and good employment skills. And really the hope was that they were going back to the island when they graduated and being part of the community there. So we were incredibly successful. We had some great stories of our students graduating and moving home and getting jobs in their community, which is always the goal for us. But the process was no easy feat. You know, we had to apply to the government to become a school to issue I-20s. And in order to do that, you have to prove that your students are going on to a 4-year or 2-year college. And for those of you that know Cardinal Cushing, that's not always a reality for many of them. And so at the time, we were really looking to partner with community colleges. We did a lot of work with Cape Cod Community College. We had some students that were taking courses at Massasoit. And so that really helped with our application. We continue to be approved to issue I-20 visas. There's an application process, and then there's a recertification process every couple of years. But I'm proud to say that we were able to make that happen. And really, I think, you know, brought some great innovative ideas, hopefully back to Bermuda, Mexico City, and Saudi Arabia, where our students were coming from.
Wow, that's fascinating. Had no idea. It's great. So when we think about challenges over the past couple years, it's something that we talk about, whether it's individually, with our peers or with groups like this, challenges around workforce, challenges around the fact that the workforce that we do have, a lot of that workforce are caregivers, and then how do you help them? And then, of course, we have diversity, equity, inclusion as a challenge, and how do we build that into our companies and our lives? Can you tell us how Cardinal Cushing works with all three of those things as challenges?
Sure. There is so much work that still needs to be done. And I think that when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, we really have to focus on that inclusion piece, because diversity can't happen without inclusion. We can't achieve our goals unless we're thinking of an inclusive community, and that's when we're open to diversity and change. During these times as a leader, certainly COVID was a challenge, but I think the biggest challenge that we're all facing, regardless of the industry, is the great resignation and the workforce crisis that we're all in. And, human services and special education, a lot of our funding is determined by legislation, by governor. So of course, I think many of us are holding our breath as we think about who will be sitting in that next seat as governor, and where does Health and Human Services fall. I've done a lot of work with some of our trade organizations, and then also meeting with, I met with Senator O'Connor over the summer just to share our challenges. And I think as a leader, this is an opportunity to really make a point with our diversity initiatives. I can say that at Cardinal Cushing, if we use our organization, the majority of our employees are persons of color and women, and these individuals are getting paid entry-level rates at $16 an hour. They're doing incredibly hard work, and the time is now to change that. These people should not be working 3 jobs to have to buy a home or to make ends meet. And so I think right now this is an opportunity for our governments and our legislation to say, we stand behind diversity, and here are some of the changes we're making and some of the investments we're making in health and human services specifically to really change that and push that forward. So I encourage all of you on the call, and I know there's a wide range, but if you have the opportunity, please reach out to your legislators, have conversations. Senator O'Connor is someone who's wonderful. He's a well-known name here on the South Shore. His work and support around veterans, education, health and human services, he's someone who is always willing to meet with you and have a cup of coffee. So I encourage all of you to reach out and share your struggles and be part of the solution and change going forward.
So I'm going to just stop here just for 1 second and see if anybody has any questions around this topic for Michelle. It's a very important topic and an opportunity here in this forum to maybe answer some questions. Anybody? No?
Ralph.
Or you can put a question in the chat if you prefer to do that, and we can respond to it later. So Michelle, given what you've just said, okay, I have a question. What is the legislature's name again? Senator
Patrick O'Connor.
I have a question for Michelle too. Hi, Michelle, it's Christy.
Hi, Christy.
Hi, good to see you. My question is, when we talk about inclusivity in the South Shore community, how accepting are South Shore businesses and other entities into accepting Cardinal Cushing graduates as employees?
So I have to say that the South Shore community has been incredibly supportive. Before COVID hit, we had partnered with almost 50 businesses along the South Shore, employing our students and our adults, because we do have adults over the age of 22. It's funny, just as recent as a couple of months ago, before Previty's Marketplace opened, I had called over there and spoke directly with the owner and said, you know, we are just hungry for an opportunity. I want our students and adults to have an opportunity to be in an inclusive, integrated work setting. Would you consider volunteers? And he said, I would never consider that. And my heart sank, and he said, I want to pay. I want to pay your adults. I want to pay your students for their time. I don't want them volunteering. So there's a plug for Previty's, but that's the attitude that we love. We of course will, we want volunteer opportunities, but when there's an opportunity for paid employment, it's just amazing.
That's great news. Thanks.
So, you know, based on the question and the response, you know, how on the South Shore and as a region, how do we create more opportunities like that? What can we do as leaders to help other communities do what Previty's is doing?
I think it's really, again, about the conversations around creating an inclusive environment, and that might be hiring people with disabilities, hiring, you know, employees who are non-white, women, you know, wherever that diversity is needed. You know, having conversations, being open to, I think when I think about the lens of hiring someone with a disability, they're just like any other employee. You know, you want to find, any employee wants to find the right match. You want to find the work that you're going to succeed in and do a good job. And when you're hiring a person with a disability, they should be treated like any other employee. They should be held to the same accountability. They should be, you should be able to provide them feedback. So I think, again, as we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just with people with disabilities, we have to really have conversations and you know, lean into those and be willing to have eyes wide open.
Absolutely, totally agree. Ralph, did you have a question?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. Joanne?
Yeah, well, I had a question just around, you said that the people with disabilities should be treated just like everyone else. And on the one hand, I agree with that, but having a son with a disability and he gets so much anxiety on the job, people don't understand really how to communicate with him. What are your thoughts around teaching or training those businesses that they do sometimes have to actually treat them a little bit differently?
Sure. Well, I think that happens through the HR process. You know, we have you know, accommodations for employees. You know, if there is someone who needs job coaching, you know, I think about Cardinal Cushing, and maybe your son might have some job coaching initially where you're sort of teasing through that, you know, looking at, you know, what is going to set the stage for success. You know, is it that, you know, an individual, you know, an employee needs, you know, a checklist that they're following to complete tasks? Is it that, you know, they're not customer facing because that gives them anxiety? So maybe they're working behind the scenes and sort of back of the house versus front of the house. So I think there's ways around that when you think about, again, looking at the individual and what their goals are, but also what are some of their challenges and how do you create a space where they're going to be successful.
Very good. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Michelle. I have a question from Jennifer Pinkham. Jennifer?
So Michelle, now that you are CEO of Cardinal Cushing and you've spent all this time, 24 years there, what are your goals for the organization as you take over the helm?
Sure. You know, Cardinal Cushing has a really rich history. Actually, this year we're celebrating our 75th anniversary, which is amazing. You know, we want to create more opportunities and do some, you know, different programming that we're not currently doing. You know, we're in the midst of creating a strategic plan, really looking at what services Cushing isn't offering that are needed, you know, as we look at referrals, students being referred, adults, young adults that have a specific need. How can we evolve and create programs where we can support the needs of students that aren't able to access, you know, public school setting or a collaborative, and really expanding, you know, and diversifying what we're doing here.
Very
Great.
good. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Michelle. I actually have a question for you in listening to all this, thinking about, you know, with every transition into a new role and every action that you take on, there's a change somewhere, right? So what would you say has been the most profound transition or change for you, and how has that shaped you as a leader?
I think for me, probably the change to becoming the CEO. I think that for many years, and I'm sure many of you have been on this call, you know, you sort of, you hesitate and you hold back. You know, an opportunity presents itself and you think, oh gosh, the job description has 20 bullets on it and I can only do 16, so I can't apply for that job. And I think that as you know, with my launch into becoming the CEO, I was at first the interim, and I think it was a time where the organization was in a little bit of a crisis. I don't think that I had the confidence prior to say I'm ready, to say this is my time. I think that I was doing it. I was doing it in a more supportive role as chief operating officer, but I myself was holding myself back, not really maybe having the confidence or saying, geez, you know, I don't know all of the areas. And I think launching into this, I don't have to know every area of, you know, the financial or the development or the programs, because I have my experts. And so relying on, you know, your teams and empowering your teams and surrounding yourself with, you know, incredibly talented professionals and creating synergy on your team so that they can launch and they have opportunities. So I think, you know, for me and maybe some people on this call, you know, I would always say, you know, don't hold yourself back. Always think about your future, think about where you want to go, think about opportunities, even if you know it's a long shot.
It's usually our own self-talk that puts up the roadblocks and barriers to what we can accomplish. The uncertainty of ourselves, even though other people may see that, yes, you are capable, yes, you have what it takes. So I think the biggest piece of that is really our mindset.
Agreed.
So George Toma, thank you, George, for the reminder, actually. So I want to ask you about the new store and the cafe, because I've been to both, and tell us a little bit about both of those.
Sure. So a few years back, our board and administrative team had this vision of creating our marketplace building. And so Cardinal Cushing has had long-standing vocational sites where we've offered job training in various businesses. And so the challenge was always, you know, our customers would drive through or say, geez, what goes on there? And we were doing amazing things, but the greater community didn't know about it. And so we raised $10 million, which is amazing, from the generosity of our donors and foundations, and wanted to create a true integrated employment opportunity. So our marketplace is a beautiful new building. It's a modern welcome to our longstanding programs here at Cushing. All of our businesses are front facing right on Route 53, which is just amazing and really gives our businesses that feel of, you know, we are established. We're here, we have a presence here. Our Cushing Cafe, it serves lunch, breakfast, dinners to go, and then sweet treats. We also do special orders. So if you have meetings, we do a couple of trays for businesses in the area. Great food. Tomorrow, there'll be live music playing at the cafe during lunch, and that's through a partnership with South Shore Conservatory. So once a month, we have a featured artist that comes in. Certainly stop by. And the Take Two and Unique Boutique are wonderful shops. Take Two is gently used items, some with the tag still on, and we have a little designer section down the back corner where you might be able to find a great gently used Coach bag, some great items from Talbot's. And then Unique Boutique is probably one of my favorites. And I think because it's not just about Cardinal Cushing, it's about a greater community and really showcasing entrepreneurs with disabilities and artists with disabilities. So when you go into the Unique Boutique, you'll find little cards, pottery, jewelry, and not only made by Cardinal Cushing students. We have featured items from RTR, which is also an organization that supports individuals with disabilities, Friendship Home, another great organization. And then there's a young man in Texas who started making his own jam line, and his sweet heat jams are to die for. So as you think about your barbecue and grilling season, definitely invest in some of that. So it's great to see that we're lifting others just, beyond Cardinal Cushing. It's not just about our students and our adults. It's about this greater awareness of folks with disabilities and seeing the amazing talents that they have.
So I'm getting a lot of comments in the chat section about items that people like there. Paula just put up something about a 7-layer magic bar. That sounds amazing.
That is amazing, yes.
So for what kind of items does Take Two have and take, and how do you donate items?
Our donation drop-off days are Monday and Thursday. But definitely check our website because sometimes those days change. We take everything with the exception of glass items. We have some stores will give us leftover items. So like I said, there's stuff with tags on it. And I'll never forget, right around the holidays, I was in the shop and there was a woman in there and she was standing in line, her arms were full. And she said, I'm on a fixed income and everything in here looks brand new. And I'm just so grateful because, my kids don't want to wear someone else's clothes, but I can't afford, this season, I can't afford anything more. And I just feel like there's so much here to offer and it's such a respectful, place. And that just made my heart really happy because it's not, again, about Cushing. It's creating this greater community connection and supporting people in need.
Megan, you have a question?
I do, and Michelle, this is great, thank you. I'm not sure if you had spoken about this and if you could redirect me, but do you have companies that support, you and the school and the students and the people in regards to whether it's basic, interviewing techniques or really coming in and working in small pods on that, you talk about entrepreneurial, stepping out into that and getting comfortable with that. Do you have people that come in within the community to assist with that and at a higher, just a high touch and maybe not in a big open forum to really be able to have that interaction and answer questions and walk through maybe some of the barriers or successes and milestones and that?
So we have not, you're talking specific to training the folks that we support.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have job coaches that we hire. We did have a relationship with Best Buddies. Again, something that happened pre-COVID. We'd love to bring that back. And it's the Best Buddies employment division. So looking at preparing our students, young adults and adults for, launch into the interview, how to prepare, how to dress for success, navigating the workplace. But certainly if there's a resource that you would love to share, I'd love to hear more about it. You could, send the information to myself directly or share with Courtney. We're always interested in partnering with community members. And I think our goal is to provide a rich and educational experience. And sometimes bringing in an outside person is a lot more impactful.
Right. I know a firm called Steinberg HR that does, human resources. And anyways, I think it would be, I just know how I do work, and I have done work with Mass Rehabilitation Commission here in the South Shore, and even in Boston and JVS. And there's just something to be said for smaller groups and being able to meet people where they're at and helping them, just get comfortable with different situations. So I'm happy to connect.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Megan. So Michelle, how can we help you? How can we help Cardinal Cushing? What can we do? As we're all from different communities. How do we help?
Well, I think, we talk about our, creating inclusive cultures, inclusive communities, thinking about diversity in your work environment, ways that, you can bring in someone with a disability, students, young adults. I think certainly supporting, the nonprofits and health and human services through legislation initiatives, being a voice for our communities is really important. So it's not always about, there is support at all levels. We come and shop at our shops and support, the students working there, learning skills. But I think, just being aware, I think, is the biggest piece, being aware of how to create inclusion, how to create diverse communities in your own space.
Very good, thank you. So I have one more question that I'm interested in hearing the answer to. So as a leader of a rather large and diverse organization, how do you get everybody on the same page?
Well, for me, I think, we talk often about, getting all the oars in the water, and it's all about communication. It really is. I think people need to understand the importance of their role, whether they are working in facilities and housekeeping or on the senior team. Everyone needs to hear their value and their value as an employee, but how we need to work together to get to that goal. So really handing them the oar, telling them they're valued, and why they are critical to our journey going forward. Communication is key. We can't do enough of it. And again, being open and honest and transparent in those conversations. I think, people need to see your authentic self.
Absolutely, and communication, right? What are some of the communication vehicles you use internally to let people know their value and how they connect?
Sure. So, we rely a lot on email. So we have almost 600 employees. We do a lot on social media, a lot on email, but I also think those personal touches, I always try to walk around. I try to learn everyone's names. Some employees I know because they've been here, they're tenured. But I think it's really important that when you see someone doing something above and beyond, bringing a smile to someone else's face, holding the door, say thank you for that. And sometimes write a note. I've been trying to, with the new year, I've been trying to be really intentional about expressing gratitude for our employees and sending them handwritten notes And I've been sending them not to them inter-office, but I've been sending them to their home, so that when they get that note, they're opening it in front of their family and saying, wow, someone noticed me today. And they actually took the time to put a stamp on an envelope and put it in the mail. So I think that those little things go such a long way. And it feels good for me as a leader to know their name and to say, I appreciate you.
Wow, what a great idea. I mean, I can remember years ago that being one of the strategies with companies is, you know, sending things in the mail. And then that went away, that personal touch. And to hear that there's, you know, I've heard from a couple people recently doing that. Now I'm hearing you doing that. You're right. It just really makes that connection and creates a strong commitment.
Yeah.
Wow, excellent. So I don't have any more specific questions. Well, I do, but it would take probably another hour and a half. Does anybody else have any questions for Michelle? Jennifer, do you have a question?
I do. I wanted to hear a little bit more about your strategic plan. I'm on another board right now. We're starting to think about strategic planning, and I've heard a lot about strategic planning recently being kind of shortened up given COVID, and, you know, doing plans that are more year long, or what is your strategic plan, and what are you going to do, a 5-year plan, or how is Cardinal Cushing approaching the strategic planning process?
So we are doing a 3-year plan. You know, we sort of sat with the idea of doing something shorter, but I think for us, that would be a little bit of a challenge just given the work that we're doing. We're looking at a 3-year plan. We're really focusing on 3 critical areas. For us, it's of course workforce development, retention and recruitment. So the workforce development piece, program innovation and creation, and then looking at overall technology and infrastructure. You know, I think that COVID, you know, was really just, you know, I felt like I got hit in the head with a frying pan when that hit, because for so many of our nonprofits, I mean, we don't have the greatest, you know, technology platforms. And so that, you know, when everything went remote and virtual, it was like, oh my gosh, you know, how do we catch up? And so that really was glaring through COVID. And I think there's an expectation, regardless of the work that you do, that you have adequate technology. So those are sort of the 3 buckets that Cushing is focusing on. You know, and within that, you know, we have a lot of land, we have a lot of buildings, you know, and I think the program side of things is really going to drive, you know, our real estate decisions, how to best use our buildings, you know, how do we look at some of our older buildings, and some of the deferred maintenance we've had, and addressing that, and what does it become, you know, are we reinventing something, you know, so that's sort of where we are, you know, and I think, you know, 3 years seems like a little bit of a long time to have a plan, because I agree with you, COVID is, I think has rattled all of us. I feel like we're still sort of in that snow globe, with the COVID is kind of gone, but it's that workforce piece that, you know, is really creating a lot of just, you know, how do we get there? You know, if you're creating new programs, are we even going to have the staff? You know, so there's so many questions that we have.
Did Cardinal Cushing retain an outside vendor to do the strategic planning process, or are you doing it just with your board directly?
So we hired a consultant. We're working with TDC, and they are working with our board and our senior staff. And we're about 3 months in. Unfortunately, we started this in September, and then of course holidays hit, that second surge of COVID hit. So my hope was that it would be completed for this, you know, by June for the board meeting, but I have a feeling we're a little bit delayed, but that's okay too. You know, I think we want to be thoughtful and go through, you know, the process.
And from a development perspective, are there any upcoming events that Cardinal Cushing's having that maybe we could join you at? Any galas or anything? Yes,
we do. We have our big gala springtime, which is on May 26th. It's at the Seaport. That's a great event. We also are doing Paddle for Purpose, which is a paddle tournament. It's a little bit of a smaller event. I think that one sold out, but our springtime gala is the next big one. And I see Lori Moranian from our development team who's on the call. She sent a link to the group if you're interested in checking that out.
Great.
Great question, Jennifer. Thank you. So with your strategic plan, what do you think your biggest challenge is going to be around implementation? You know, there's always the plan, then there's the execution of the plan. What do you think? Any thoughts about that?
I think honestly, it's going to be workforce. You know, so the work that we do, you know, we're taking care of people 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And, you know, I keep going back to the legislative process and the budget. You know, our rates are set by the state. Our reimbursements for our contracts are set by the state for all of our programs. And so if we're not getting increased funding to our programs, we're not relevant in this market. You know, our job coaches, our students or adults that we support can go work at Chick-fil-A and make more money than some of our staff that could be driving them to work every day. So we've got to pay attention to the health and human services. We've got to give it the attention it needs. And again, I keep going back to, this is the time when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, when we think about our workforce, you know, we've got to make some big changes. And Massachusetts is always the leader. So let's get it right. And then hopefully the rest of the nation will catch on and do the same.
Yeah, the challenge, you know, we were talking about this challenge in the breakout group about the pay. And somebody leaving because they can go to a Chick-fil-A and make more money per hour than they're earning at the nonprofit they're working at. And then what do you do? You know, how do you combat that? So I agree. I think legislation is the way to do it. Anyway, very good. Thank you. Megan, did you have another question?
I do, and you can just send me a message, maybe, or all of us afterwards, because I don't know if you'll have enough time, but do you or anybody on your team attend company meetings to talk about, like, to tell the story and to talk about all the different programs and how it can benefit organizations? Or just, Christy and I were actually just going back and forth about social conservatory, if you or somebody on your team would come and talk to the leadership team, and it could probably benefit so many other companies as well. Do you already have that set up? Is it something that you do?
I think that we do it more of sort of a one-off if we're invited or if there's interest for to learn more about what Cushing does. We're always willing to go and meet with folks. I think it's great to have that opportunity, because I think that it allows for those smaller conversations to happen. So if anyone on the call would like for us to be part of that, we'd love to.
We also just love your energy and want you to infuse that.
Thank you.
So it sounds like you're going to be touring.
Yes.
Sounds good. I love it. I love it. You know what? It's Christy, it's you have good energy when you love what you do. And I love what I do. Cardinal Cushing is an amazing place. And so I think that shines through. So thank you.
You can tell that you love it. You have that in your heart. You can see
Jackie,
it.
I think we're all going to head to the cafe after this anyway, so.
I know.
Oh, good.
I was just thinking that we should extend the meeting to the cafe.
Magic squares on me.
So Michelle, I'd like to thank you for being the guest this morning, and how enlightening it has been, and what a pleasure it is to hear you speak and see your compassion for what you do. And I know, you know, anybody that has any other questions after this session can either direct them through Courtney or directly through the Cardinal Cushing website. There's a lot of great information on their website. So I'm going to turn it back over to Courtney.
Right. All right. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for joining us today. We're so, it's been really nice to get to know you a little bit more. And we're really fortunate to be able to have you as part of our leadership too this year. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for lending your expertise to our board. And I hope you all had a good morning with us, and we'll enjoy the rest of your day and get outside. I'm going to do one more plug for our sponsors. I just want to thank them again. Enbridge, George Washington Toma, Hollywood Agency, Mass General Brigham, Mountain One Bank, Partnering for Performance, and Steinberg HR. Thank you again for your support of this program. Thank you again, Michelle, for your energy. We're very excited to have you involved. So with that, I'm going to wrap up for today and let you all get on with this beautiful day.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
great day, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.